This week's Webdvar is sponsored by Rich and Sue Kellen. Upon the yurtzeit of Rich's father, Mr. Leo Kellen, Lev ben David. Mr. Kellen was a beloved member of our shul who was always gracious and always a shul goer. May his neshama have an aliyah based on all of the wonderful things and wonderful mitzvos that his children and his grandchildren continue to be involved in. Parshas Tetzave is unique in that it is the only parsha in the Torah from the beginning of Sefer Shmos until the very end of the Torah in which Moshe's name does not appear. The parsha begins with the word ve'ata, and you, referring to Moshe, Webdvar Tetzave b'nei Yisrael, command the Jewish people concerning the various garments worn by the Kohen, by the Kohanim and the Kohen Gadol, the high priest. But Moshe's name itself does not appear. And what is the reason for that? So in next week's parsha, that's why I mentioned that the Torah is not in chronological order. In next week's parsha, we learn about the sin of the golden calf. And after the Jewish people sinned in the golden calf, God wanted to destroy the people. Moshe stood on the top of Har Sinai, and he pleaded the case of the Jewish people before God, and he said to God, please forgive them. V'im ayin, and if you do not, mechenina misifrecha asher kasavta, please erase me from this book that you wrote. In other words, please erase my name from the Torah. So God responds to Moshe and he says, Es asher chatal li emchena misifri. He says, Moshe, I'm not going to erase you. Instead, I'm going to erase the Jewish people. They're the ones who sinned against me. Moshe continued pleading the case, and eventually God forgave the Jewish people. But yet, Moshe was punished for what he said. In that Chazal, our rabbis teach us that this parsha, specifically this parsha, Moshe's name does not appear. Even though he's within the fabric of the parsha, but his name does not appear. So the Sifsei Kohen says to us, explains to us, that we learn a tremendous message from here that Moshe actually gave within the pasuk. Webdvar Tetzave es b'nei Yisrael, and you should command b'nei Yisrael, you should command the Jewish people. What should you command them? Of course, you should command them about the big day Kehuna, you should command them about the clothing of the Kohanim, but you should also command them and tell them what happened with you, Moshe, says God. Tell them what happened. Tell them what you said when you said to me, erase me from your book. And ultimately, I didn't erase you completely, but nevertheless, in this week's parsha, because you said it, there is a consequence to words that come out of a person's mouth. So one parsha I took you out of, even though I forgave the people. But since you said it, there was a consequence. And the message that Moshe was to give to the Jewish people was, command them, tell them, that whatever comes out of your mouth, one has to be so careful in what they say. Not only what they say about others, but in this case in particular, what they say about themselves, even if it's detrimental to oneself. Perfect example is, so many times in life we become angry at ourselves. And when we become angry at ourselves, there are times that we call ourselves names. There are times that we degrade ourselves. There are times that we continue to make fun of ourselves and knock ourselves down and destroy our self-esteem and self-worth. The message that Hashem told Moshe to give to Bnei Yisrael was, you're not allowed to do so. One is not allowed to curse themselves or degrade themselves. One is allowed to make mistakes, because we're only human. And one is allowed to look back at those mistakes and learn from them. But one could learn from their mistakes, and there's a difference between learning from one's mistake and degrading oneself. Degrading or cursing oneself, that one is prohibited from doing. Tremendous lesson, I believe, for ourselves in practical level in life. And it's a lesson that's taught to us by Moshe Rabbeinu, the man who taught us, the man of God, who taught us so much. As we say, Torah tziva lanu Moshe, Morasha kilas Yaakov, a tremendous message from his own life that inspires us for our lives as well. May we be zoche, may we merit that indeed we drive up our own self-esteem. We learn from our mistakes, we grow from our mistakes, but heaven forbid, we never make the mistake of degrading ourselves. May we be zoche to indeed heed this message, and by doing so, continue to be inspired by the life and the Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu. Thank you for listening, and good Shabbos.